Thanks for choosing to watch the video. If you enjoy it, then please like and subscribe and all that stuff. In this one, we're surface fishing for carp again, but we're trying to be a little bit more stealthy and we're freelining. So a lot of you will probably be familiar with this. It's just gone 5 o'clock in the morning and I've got until before breakfast to try and catch a fish. In true Opportunist style, I've come down one rod, one little 10-foot rod, and I've had a good look around, and I've got to be honest, I can't sort of see an opportunity. You know, I've got what, 3 hours, maybe 2 or 3 hours. And then I'm going to get home for breakfast, be with the family. Because I can't see any opportunities, I've got to try and create some opportunities. And what I tend to do is, as soon as I get here, I try and get several things going on. Although it's not sunny, it is really quite warm. And I think by about 6 o'clock, 6 or 7 o'clock, it could be warm enough to entice some carp up onto the top. I've got some mixers in the bottom. I'll start putting a few of those out with a throwing stick just out in front of me, see if I can bring any carp up to the top. If they start taking off the top, then I've either got my controller set up or like a bread bomb, and I'll try and snatch a carp off the top. Again, you know, I've got a lot of things going on, is what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to create an opportunity. I'm not just doing one thing, I'm going to be doing sort of several things to try and see what's going to work in a fairly short amount of time. And the fish will let me know how I should be fishing and try and get one before breakfast. I have got the odd carp coming up now for a mixer, and that can only mean one thing: we've got to get the bread bomb out. They are coming up, they are having it. Let's try and snatch one off the top before breakfast. Got myself another bread bomb muncher. I mean, this is fantastic, you know, it's fun fishing, a short 10-foot rod, minimum amount of gear, and out here catching a few carp before breakfast. It's not even 8 o'clock in the morning, and I'm now going to go and enjoy the rest of the day at home with the folks. So it's summer, that means of course I'm fishing on the surface, and in this video I'm wanting to take you through how I do that when I'm freelining. So I do that in two different ways. I do it using the Mega Bands, so that's using bread, and that's what you saw in the first part of the video there, and I'll take you through a rig in a sec. The other way that I do it is utilising trim down pop-ups on the hair, and I'll take you through that as well. But first, let's have a look at the Mega Bands. So here we go, I've got my Opportunist rod. This one is the 8-foot version. You've seen me in other videos using the 10-foot version a lot. This one is the 8-foot version, which is great for this type of sort of stalking approach to fishing. 8-foot Opportunist, Axis 4000 reel. I've got it actually loaded with fluorocarbon. That's 10 pound fluorocarbon I got on there. I feel like with bread I can use a slightly larger hook than I would with other types of surface fishing. So I'm quite happy to use a size 8 or a size 6. Rather than trying to thread the Mega Band onto the line, what I do is I use the hook. I push the hook through the hole in the Mega Band at the front there so that I've got it mounted on the hook. And then I'll just tie on the hook, and for that I use a grinner knot. Make sure you moisten the knot, just pull it down, and there you go. We now have the main line, the hook with the Mega Band on the back. In order to open the bread, what I do is I kind of like put the band, 2 fingers inside the band, you know, they're quite stretchy, get my bread, just sort of push it in between my fingers, and then quickly slide my fingers out. There we go. You'll actually be surprised how far you can cast this. You'll be able to cast this much further than the trim down pop-up that I'm going to take you through. With a little bit of a dunk in the water, not too much, because you don't want it to fall apart, but with a little dunk in the water you will be surprised how far this will actually cast. You know, you get a reasonable cast out of it. So there we go, that's how I use the Mega Bands with bread, and that's what I caught the first fish on in this video. So behind me is the lake that we'll be fishing in the second part of the video. Let me show you around. It's another club lake, but this time it's quite a lot bigger, with carp up to mid-30s, and like everywhere recently it's been pretty busy and it's seen quite a lot of pressure. There's lots of islands and little bays, making it quite an interesting lake. I've looked round it quite a few times and there's always plenty of bivvies set up and people fishing for the carp. But my plan, as is often the way, is just to wander around the lake with a small amount of stuff, trying to find a few fish and maybe stalk them off the top. I've been getting on with my other fishing and just waiting for some warm days, some really constant hot temperatures. Feels like this is a proper carp lake, and it feels like little trimmed down Freeline pop-ups are going to be order of the day. What I'll do is I'll take you through my trimmed down pop-up rig now that I use on the surface, and I usually use that when the fish are just being a bit more tricky. With my trimmed down pop-up rig, I use this on lakes where the fish are being a little bit more cute, where I'm trying to match the hatch a little bit more closely, given that I'm feeding mixers and I'm wanting to put something out that looks more like a mixer. In terms of the rod and the reel, that stays exactly the same, obviously. I will have probably 10 or 12 pound fluorocarbon on the reel. With this one, I tend to use a leader. I have got smoke screen there, and I use that in either 8 pound, 10 pound or 12 pound. Now, I've got quite a serious point when it comes to selecting your line breaking strain. Okay, and this is, for me, this is in all fishing really. I would urge people to go slightly heavier than slightly light, because I think it's fish care. It's to do with fish care, and it's to do with not leaving hooks in fish. It's to make sure that you don't snap up. Sometimes I think where people go wrong is that they grade their line that they're using based on the size of the fish that they're fishing for. And for me, that's not how I do it. You know, I've caught very big carp, you know, like 25, nearly 30 pound carp on, you know, 8 pound line. I've even dropped to 6 before. So it's not really the size of the fish. What you've got to look at is the environment in which you're fishing. So what I'm talking about there is snags, weed, you know, anything like that, lily pads. It's these things that govern what breaking strain line I'm actually using. The big carp that I've landed on light lines, you know, that's fishing in a lake that's just a big bowl and you know, I can let it run around, I can set the drag, and I can just slowly tire it out. And for that, I'd need a completely different line than if I was fishing in quite an enclosed space where you know, I couldn't give the fish an inch and da-da-da. So anyway, so you get the idea. But as a general rule, let's just assume that I've got 12-pound fluorocarbon on the main line, and I'm going to use 10-pound smoke screen as a leader. Now, I'm not going to want too much leader. The leader knots get on my nerves coming through the eyes of the rod while I'm trying to cast. You know, that leader knot is going to impair your cast. I'm only trying to cast a pop-up. You know, already that's not going to go very far. And the last thing I want is a leader knot passing through the eyes of the rod when I'm casting. So in actual fact, I only want a fairly short leader. You know, probably only a yard or two. So before I tie on that leader, the smoke screen leader, what I want to do is I want to create a small loop in the end of that. That's what I'm going to mount the pop-up on, so I'll do that now. I've got these pop-ups that are sort of mixerish coloured, so they're the ones that I'm going to use. I will take the pop-up, trim it down with my teeth, or you can use your fingernail if you want to be a little bit less gross. Get it down to the size of a mixer, sort of, you know, make it a little bit more mixer shaped. There's the pop-up mounted onto the loop. Haven't put a hook on yet, just literally the pop-up. The reason I put that on first is so that I can get it really tight to the hook. On this one, I will use the power hooks again, but this time I'll bring it down to a size 10. So now I take my hook, put that onto the top of the leader, thread that all the way through, right down to where the pop-up is. And now, because I've put the pop-up on, I'm now able to make sure that I get that really tight to the hook. Knotless knotted it on there, and it's really tight to the hook. And now I'm able to tie on this leader. I tie on the leader with a grinner to grinner knot. I'm sure a lot of people will say there's stronger knots than that out there for leaders. But I've used grinner knots since I was a kid, and yeah, they've done all right. They've been all right for me. So you end up with 2 grinner knots. You literally can just pull them apart, and they just sort of bed down on each other. And then I trim off the tag ends. So there we go. There's my 12-pound fluorocarbon. Make sure you do use a floating main line. Last thing you want is a sinking main line. So I've got 12-pound fluorocarbon, grinner to grinner, down to the smoke screen, 10-pound smoke screen. It's then coming down to the hook that is put on with the knotless knot, and there's the trim down pop-up that's mounted really nice and tight to the hook. And that is my Freeline surface rig when I'm trying to match the hatch, match the mixers, and try and fool some of these carp that are a little bit more wary. Eventually some warm weather came in, but the first session didn't go well. Oh, what happened? Oh, I pulled out. Oh, you're joking. Oh, it. Oh no. Blown it here. Completely blown it. Had my chance. Fucked it. So not a great start with a lost fish, but at least it gave me confidence in a way. You know, I knew I could catch them. So I went into my second session full of confidence, and that's where you join me now. Don't get a take here. I think we know something's up. They all absolutely knew that they had to blank that one. Might switch to freelining. We've all been here when we're floater fishing, haven't we? With bird life. Oh, doesn't it drive you nuts? Eating a complete mug of me at the moment. He put his mouth round it and let go. Oh, he was coming at it from the right angle as well, you know, like from behind, exactly where you want him to come from. Yeah, these fish have been fished for a fair amount on the top, I think. The controllers come off. They just don't like it. I've got to try and draw them in. I've got to try and bring them into the bank. Hide behind this. Let's see if that works. This has got to be it. Come on. Yes! God blimey, at last! Jesus Christ! Tinian's taking the controller off and trying to bring the fish closer to me. I think they fished a lot on the top, they must be. They were so spooky of the controller. I knew I'd get one eventually. The side of the goblet. Need to wake up here, I could have netted him. Rod hooped over that, lovely. I love that. Come on, and that little size 10 to stay in. Just being patient. Oh, one love. Run, fair play. Really fighting well. Come on. Come on. There he is. Yes. Got him. Oh yeah, he's alright. He's bigger than I thought. Oof. Had to work for this, but I've got an absolute cracker. Eventually I got it by taking the controller off and freelining. And look at that. What an awesome fish. Just freelining in the end, a trimmed down boilie. Took the controller off and that was the problem. Managed to get the fish closer to me by hiding in a bush as usual. Absolutely nailed it. Well happy with that, really, really happy with that. First from a new venue too. So what was interesting there was I was fishing with that controller further out for at least 2 hours, trying to get them to take it. They knew something was up. They were sort of spooking off the controller, and they were mopping up freebies and just leaving mine, you know, like they do. Really frustrating, isn't it? And eventually, after getting really frustrated, what I decided to do, and what actually worked in the end quite quickly, was to take off the controller, make sure I was well hidden. I mean, if you notice in that clip, I'm not bang centre of the middle of the swim, and I think that's really important when you float fishing, especially if you're going to try and draw the fish in close to you. I've moved to the side of the swim. I was sort of like half behind a bush, and I spent just about I don't know, half an hour or so, maybe not even that, 20 minutes or so, just slowly, the mixers I was putting in, I was decreasing the distance that I was putting them out, knowing that I was wanting to bring the fish closer to me. Eventually I did, and I got them within casting distance of my Freeline pop-up, put it in, and bang, straight away had a fish. So probably worth thinking about, you know, if you are struggling with fish and then being a bit cagey, think about taking the controller off and then just drawing the fish towards you and then freelining. So that completes my video about freelining for carp on the surface. If you enjoyed it, then please like and subscribe and all that stuff. I think in the next one I'll probably be rolling meat for barbel, or I might be fishing the lift method on the float for tench. Until then, make sure you look after yourselves, stay safe, and of course, be lucky.